Great. Okay, so all in favour? Okie dokie, and all against? There we go. Debate at its finest. Right, on to item 3.3C, the future of Grove House. So we'll do as we've been doing. Do we have a proposer for this amendment? Tomorrow, do we have a seconder? Debater. Okay, Lisa and Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So members, as you know, we were leasing out the rooms adjacent to here. So room next door and the marriage room, but also the corridor area out there with access to the toilets, to Churchill's for £18,000 a year. They vacated with very little notice. We had suggested that we might be open to discussions about them vacating, but they decided not to have discussions and just to leave when it suited them. And we've reached an appropriate financial settlement with them since they've left, including back pay for rates and a number of other things. We have not immediately sought a replacement tenant for them. So the reasons for that are we were in breach of our equalities and access duties by having them as a tenant in this building, because it meant that when there was a meeting here, there was no access to toilets, no access to disabled toilets. So whilst we came to an informal arrangement with them towards the end for council meetings to be able to walk through their area, that meant our leaseholder was having to lock all their documents away at night and have an informal arrangement with us to give us access to do that. Given that there is no lift in this building, if we had a member of staff with accessibility issues, they would have to work downstairs, and we would have had, if we leased that back out again, then we've got no way of providing someone who can't get upstairs with a job. And that is a situation I really don't want to be in. I'm still nervous about the fact that we couldn't get someone upstairs if they applied for a job with us, but at least we can get them in the building and work with them appropriately. So I don't think it would be appropriate. I would not be willing to immediately lease it out the same space again because of that legal risk it puts us at. We have made some of that money back, so we're now renting out the meeting room on the other side in the panelled room to Morton's, the solicitors, who run the rest of the building. Whilst they've come out of the smaller room upstairs they were paying less for, we will seek to lease that out for £3,000 a year. There are a number of ways of raising income from the space that now remains downstairs. One is to once again offer weddings and formal ceremonies from what's known as the marriage room. We've met with the registrars from CBC who are very keen to explore that option. We have a team who are used to running weddings. We have a member of staff who's close to becoming qualified as a celebrant. Do that under our remit. And because that's the Priory House team, who are not running the full Priory House for the next 18 months, they're just running the shop, they've got the capacity in the next 12 months to fully explore and put their energies into developing this building for weddings while that's not possible at Priory House. Now that will take some time. There are licenses and you've got to then furnish appropriately and then build up a client base. There is also this room, especially once you've got toilet access, is a business venue. So we've already got one hire for a day coming up in this year. And you've then got flexible space that could be hired for all kinds of things. So having that space available makes it much more possible for us to generate income. And it also means that for things like mayoral functions, we've got used to that room next door. We can widen it all out and open all the doors. So we could make better civic use of this building. We're about to spend £250,000 on this building, which we talked about elsewhere. And we will have to spend that kind of sum again on it as a listed building to keep making it safe. If we're spending that amount of money on a public building, I would just say we should be trying to make it as accessible to the public for home use as we can. We will not, in the next 12 months, totally earn back all of the remaining £8,000 you'd have to earn to get that £18,000 back. It will take, but that process of building up the profile and use of this space, it will take a good 12 months to build awareness and for staff to work out what works, what doesn't work. And with weddings, there's quite a lot of work to do to work out what's the price point, what do people actually what are people prepared to pay, and to build up a sense of that. Just doing a survey now wouldn't give us that information, because we can't clearly say what the offer is. We would have to work out the market as time goes by. We couldn't offer the super cheap wedding that CBC offer in their own offices, because they just pay a registrar. They don't charge us a significant sum for a registrar to come and see the building and conduct a wedding. So it will always be more expensive to be married here than at CBC offices, but it will be Dunstable. So it would be the only venue in Dunstable where people would get married. I think that's a service we should consider. So, and the other thing to say is, if you decide tonight that we should seek a tenant for downstairs, well, I can't say exactly how much we'd get for it. We'd get as far as we could. Obviously, I can't guarantee we'd have a tenant in place on the 1st of April. So it's difficult to then set exactly the right budget. It's whichever way round, we're not going to, I cannot guarantee an income of £18,000. So the officer recommendation would be to give us a year to try and build up business and develop use of downstairs.
Okay, thank you, Town Clerk. I've got Madam Mayor with a question.
Question, actually, thank you. I can see the need to earn an income from that space, but I can also see the need for it to be a flexible space, for it to allow us the use of the accessible toilet. I think that's really, really important for existing staff and any future staff members, indeed any visitors that might come to council for other reasons. I do have a question. I really like the idea of us reintroducing weddings here, and I think the general public would really like that too. And then I was thinking that that would offer a more affordable way of having a wedding ceremony. So my question really is, it wouldn't be as cheap as a CBC wedding. I don't actually know how much that costs. But for those that may choose to use a registry office instead of a church, do you think it would be competitive to what the alternative church type wedding would be? Would it give people a cheaper option, do you think, than having a full-blown church wedding? Is my question. I was sort of wondering what sort of cost it might sort of sit around if people have it here.
The cost that we've currently discussed is the same cost that we charge at Priory House that would be here. So that, and then I think it's 279.
Okay.
And then the marriage, the people that are booking it, they book the registrar separately to come along. But that would be, we do our fees in line with Priory House, which obviously did have a business.
So it may yet be possible to do some kind of deal with CBC. If we could do a deal with CBC where if we have 5 marriages in a day, their registrar drop their costs significantly, that might be something. Obviously, CBC's first question in any of those discussions is going to be how can they make the maximum amount of money, just given the situation they're in. But there might be some work to be done there. This building holds more than Priory House, so you could have a wedding for more people here than you could at Priory. I suspect in the end, once Priory reopens, Priory will price itself a bit higher, and Priory will be a higher end offer. Obviously, we would have tried to make things as cheap as possible, but we will always try to have as many offers as we can. If people do want to spend more money on other things, we'll try and accommodate them as well. I mean, church weddings, obviously, you can get married in the vestry for not very much, and then you can do the whole thing as any other weddings. I think one of the key points here is this is a secular option, and there's not as many of those in Dunstable. Well, or venue that's licensed.
Okay, thank you.
Just to make a point as well, when the registrars visited, they said that they are still getting inquiries, even though Central Events finished doing weddings here many years ago now. They're still getting inquiries to use this building for weddings. So they're already in a want.
Yeah.
Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thank you. So just trying to ask a question for clarification on what I think I've understood. So there's an opportunity cost to waiting a while to see whether we can build this into a wedding venue that could attract enough income to compensate for the fact that we've lost 18,000 currently. That's what we're proposing. I'm just trying to work out whether there will be a strong enough business case, given there might be 3 venues offering weddings in council offices in Dunstable at some point. So the business case for leaving it fallow for a year in order to have the accommodation to offer weddings will attract more income than renting out the space that we've lost. I'm just trying to work out what I think I've understood.
Yeah, so there's some uncertainty in those numbers.
Yeah, sure.
So we've identified an income of £10,000 before we've hired anything out, an income of £10,000 from downstairs. So by hiring out the other building, by leasing it upstairs and by the 3,000 for what we think we get. So we think if we don't lease anything out, we'd have an income of £10,000 for the next 12 months. We're confident that that will go up in the following 12 months. But by how much, I honestly cannot say. We know there's a significant opportunity around weddings, but we just don't know the details of that. But the other thing to note with that is there isn't an option on the table for immediately having recovered, going straight back to 18,000 of income, because we don't have anybody available. And if we don't lease out the access piece through, then it wouldn't be 18,000 anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, thank you, Town Clerk, and thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Jones.
So an average cost of a church wedding is £579 in 2024. And it looks like a basic registry office ceremony can be low as £57 or as high as £279. Go back 10 years probably since we did weddings here.
Must be.
Probably 10 years. I would say this venue was used at least 2 or 3 times every single Saturday from April through to October. And you would have Christmas weddings and you would have winter weddings. You would even have weddings on the day that you had party in the park, and they would come out of the double doors and they'd come out to masses of cheers. They wouldn't be able to hear their vows being read because, you know, we'd have to communicate because you couldn't have that happen. But it was phenomenal, the use of in here. The demand for weddings will be huge. There is nowhere else in town to get married other than the churches at the moment. And I just think you're opening yourselves up to a massive income by doing it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hollick.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was just wondering, at Priory House, obviously, we offered the possibility of food as well. Would we be offering that as a sort of an extra here, provided by Priory House or some external caterer? I'm just trying to get the full picture of what it is we would be able to offer.
So we've discussed this at length in the past. So it's very difficult to know with Priory House because obviously there's some distance off it reopening and we're going to have to recruit staff and review menus and where they operate anyway. So it was quite tricky in the past when Priory House catered for events here, given the size of their kitchen and things, operation they're going on. So it's not impossible, but we're not predicating this recommendation on that, or whether we would work with other local partners to provide food. We would certainly do everything we could to offer as many additional offers like food. And obviously, the marriage room is available and this room as well. This is one of the things the registrar was saying. Actually, that becomes a really good offer then. So you can have your wedding, you can have your food, you've got your registrar room, you've got everything in the one venue. So, and obviously the higher cost would then be more.
They've also recommended in the future that we license the bandstand to have outdoor weddings as well as an option.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, just to come back, because I was kind of working it out as well, what the potential rough income could be. As Councillor Jones was talking, or just before she talked. And if we looked at 5 weddings a week, 52 weeks of the year, roughly, let's say 279 without the registrar, that's 72,540. If we could do 5 a week, those sort of figures, which is a much bigger income than what we were getting when we hired out that area at 18,000 a year. So I think potential there is that it could be quite fruitful.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so next, Councillor Baker, Councillor Commander, then I'll put you down tomorrow.
Would there be the provision to have weddings during the week and not just Saturdays? Yeah. But if they wanted to hire here, if they wanted food, would they be able to hire that as well? during the week, I mean.
Probably, yes. Obviously, it will become a multifunctional building.
Yeah.
And questions around, well, who staffs what, when, and how we do staff costs. There's lots of questions in there.
Yeah.
But the absolute approach in the staff will be, we want to sweat, as I said, for us to do as much as we can. And to get the people who've done something here as much as we possibly can.
And I think we should go for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Quanto.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, as Councillor Liz was saying, my daughter's getting married. CPC, it was a challenge. They had to be referred out of county. So my cousin got married last year, and again, when they went to CPC, they were referred somewhere else because of the date they wanted to get married and the people they wanted to have in the room. So the fact that you have a bigger room, we wanted to be about 40 people in that room. They couldn't accommodate.
Good to know. The business case is getting even more exciting by the moment. Okay, I've got Councillor Tamar.
Thank you, Chair. I brought this to the Chief Executive because in my mind, it's all about a business case. The idea of having a building left open, not doing anything for me is certainly ridiculous. And the taxpayer paying for that. But now we're talking about a business case. Now we know there's an idea of what we're actually going to do for it. What are the numbers behind it? Is this going to really work? Is this some fairy tale idea that we assume we could use, or this is actually a real thing that you're actually going to do? My passion is always about not wasting the taxpayers' money because you can. But if you present a business case to members, I think, you know, the conversation is going on here. We all can see there are potential here, but if this sort of conversation or this proposal or the business case was brought to council beforehand, we probably would not be having this conversation. And that's my criticism, that we have to almost see down the road, you know, because after us, somebody would have to pay the shortfall. And I think we're doing our job tonight by saying we must have a business case. There cannot be any wastage, you know, just by, you know, watching things. I mean, you look around the town and you can see it, building that belongs to council just sitting there because they can. And what I'm saying is, let's have a business case. Let's use this building properly. Show us that you have a vision to make this building produce. I think this is what's happening. So I am in total agreement with the vision, okay? But I think we need to move as quick as we can. We need to do the research. We need to have the case to show that this can actually result. If we were just talking about 3 weddings a week, okay, now we're talking numbers. Now we're saying this actually would be effective, but I was against the idea of just having it, and then we're going to think whether or not we can do something about it. That was a problem for me. We need to have facts behind taxpayers' money. That's my issue. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. That's all.
Just lead on to Councillor Tamara's point. That's a very good point. You know, it's a business case, but we've got a business case and it's staring us right in the face. And as it's going to, you know, the only place that we can actually have, you know, registry office weddings in town, it's a niche. We've got the niche market there. You know, even if you're looking at the numbers, I know someone's done some quick calculations on that, but even if you're looking at half of that or even a quarter of that, you're still looking at making more revenue than what we'd be doing if we were letting that out to another business. So in my case, the business case has now been proved beyond all doubt. And we've got nothing to lose but to see what's out there, because it looks like a very exciting prospect. And this isn't just numbers in the air. We've got history here. So we've got proven how many weddings we've had here in the past. We've got, I think, the feeling, the temperature of the rooms that people are queuing up to want to come back here or to be here, and that's been shut down for 10 years, which kind of says everything about what you need to know. Just going on that point, you know, I agree with what you're saying. You do need a business case for this, but I think it's now been proven beyond doubt And, you know, we have got a moral, there's kind of morality about it as well, that this, you know, that we can do something for the residents. This is their building at the end of the day. It's been historically their building. It's been historically used for that purpose. So in moral terms as well, I know you shouldn't always come into its financial purposes, but I think there's both here that's laid out on the table for people, members to see.
We've got Councillor Beta, and then we will go to the next step.
I just would like to say, I think we should vote on it, let the officers get on, do their job and get it going.
Totally.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beta. I'll also quickly note the wedding stuff's all really exciting. As someone who used to be a wheelchair user in my teenage years, the idea that making the council building more accessible to the public to come and see our meetings, to councillors, to staff is actually really compelling to me as well. So I'm on board. Town clerk, when we say we're in favour, what are we saying?
So the proposal was that you review whether to proceed with developing plans to raise income as well as weddings, or just seek to lease the space out again.
Need an amendment then, don't we?
So
Can I propose something?
yes, please.
That the council proceeds with developing plans to raise income from hiring council chairman wedding room for general use as well as weddings. That covers it all.
Excellent. Did someone write that down?
It's the first.
It's all on tape.
Have you got it
Great.
in front of you?
Okie dokie. Then we're voting in favour. We are voting to go with what?
Go with
Yep,
weddings.
okay.
Weddings and hire.
Thank you much, everyone. All in favour? Any against and any abstentions? That is very unanimous. Okie dokie. Right, we're almost there. We'll do my amendment and then we might need to recognise 1.1 possibly at the end. Yes, okay, great. Fine, then I'll keep my amendment nice and quick. It is an amended amendment. I'm putting forward the following amendments to the budget to smooth out the reset increase this year and better streamline Dunstable for Town Council to continue delivering high impact and beneficial policy interventions at the town. The below amendments taken together offer an annual saving of £1,000 to Dunstable's taxpayers. They are as follows. Reducing the mail transport budget from 3,500 a year to 3,000 and reducing the mayoral allowance from 4,500 a year to 4,000. I suppose I'm proposing my own amendment. Does anyone second it? It's Councillor Brennan. Okie dokie. In that case, does anyone wish to speak on this? Wowza Rooney. Okie dokie. I need another piece of paper. Bear with me. Put your hands back up, please.
Easy to receive.
It would, right, and that's Councillor Gurney. Great. Okay, let's start with the mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Oh gosh, I'm always really in favour of reducing costs and spend, blah, blah, blah. I am absolutely. I'm a resident myself. There's a cost of living crisis at the moment. And every penny really does matter. I think we've probably all struggled in one way or another. And I love the proposal to reduce the mayoral allowance and the transport allowance for the mayor. However, it does worry me a little bit that if we are to reduce it at all, we may well be excluding some councillors from performing that role. An example being that at the moment I drive, and to most events I would drive myself because I can. And sometimes that's easier for me because I'm coming from work or whatever. Or I walk if it's very, very local. But not everybody may have the same circumstances as me. They may not drive, they may not own a vehicle. they may not be able to drive for a medical condition, or, you know, so I think the allowance is there because it's been tested over decades and it's set at what it is because there's been a shown need for it to be set at that amount. I don't think it's an excessive amount. With the allowance itself, again, you know, I've tried, as my year as mayor, tried not to spend too much money where possible. But again, you know, there are a lot of, you know, I'm sure that I will spend the whole allowance actually for the end of the year. But there are, you know, like it's not a lot, it's not really a lot of money, and the mayor gives up a lot of time if they choose to. You know, they agree to every single invite and every single event. That is like tens of hours each week, and I think to reduce the allowance would really not do the role justice, because some people would need to take that allowance in advance to be able to fund their year through the role. It is quite a flexible allowance. I think reducing it will be a barrier to allowing all 18 councillors the ability to carry out that role, and that's how I feel about it. I'm all for reducing costs, but I don't think it would be right to do it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jones.
It will come as no surprise that I totally agree with Councillor O'Riordan. Every mayor does their year differently, and every mayor has their own set of circumstances, private circumstances around affordability. The cost of living has impacted on the role of mayor. Going to events has become more costly over the last 2-3 years, and it has significantly changed. Whereas an invite to an event used to be £10 a ticket, you're now talking £15, £20 a ticket. When you get there, and upwards, when you get there, your raffle tickets, you go and you have a drink, you know, whether it be a tea, a coffee or whatever, you still have to pay for your refreshments. You're not always given things as mayor. You often are sitting around a table with people that you're talking to, so you feel obliged to say, would you like a cup of tea or a coffee can I get? You may want to go and support a local birthday in an old people's home for a 100th birthday. You might want to take some flowers to that person. Those things all cost money, and they soon add up over the course of the year. And I totally agree with what Louisa said. You know, there could be councillors around this table that would love to do the role as mayor, but can't physically afford it, and there should not be a barrier to stop them from doing that.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I've got Councillor Palmer.
Chair, thank you. I think all I'm going to say is there should not be any reduction in this. I've looked at the number after seeing your proposal. I actually don't think there's any justification for reducing it. I think the opportunity is there for anybody that wants. There's going to be a mayor to use that fund as is appropriate. Like Councillor Jones said, there would be, you know, different people, you know, sort of do this role very differently. Therefore, I think I would not be supporting the proposal to reduce it.
Thank you, Councillor Hollick.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it is understanding the role of mayor, and I don't know that everyone, particularly new councillors, really understand what is involved being mayor. The number of engagements to which one is invited, 200-300 a year, can easily be the case. Many are outside Dunstable. An example could be where someone takes their own car, maybe because they feel that employing our drivers is more expensive, but then you turn up, you can't find a parking place, and you end up late at the event. Had the car been taken, for example, then one would have arrived in a calm situation and be able to take part unflustered. So I also agree wholeheartedly that taking on the role of mayor should not impinge upon your own financial circumstances. It's more than the putting your hand in your own pocket and being being able to get that money back. There are times when maybe some dress may have to be purchased, because I know when I was mayor, the pins in the shoulder wreaked havoc with my blazer, and I needed a new one as a result of taking on that role. When I was in the line to receive the Queen, I thought it right that I should have a proper suit, for example. So there are many reasons why I think it would be wrong to reduce this. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Gurney, and then I shall speak, and then Councillor Brown.
I agree with all the other councillors that have already spoken. We do have one councillor who cycles here on the bicycle. He doesn't have his own car. If he were to have the opportunity to be mayor, I'm sure he wouldn't be cycling everywhere, and therefore transport would have to be provided for him. And you know, over a year, that would be quite expensive. So can't see any reason to reduce it, especially with costs going up all the time. So I'm against this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gurney. I'll just say, to explain the logic behind this slightly more, part of what Councillor Hollick mentioned is part of my logic here. I see the role of mayor first and foremost as for the people of the town, and the idea to me the mayor should accept every single invitation that is outside of the town, to me seems not always sustainable. I mean, when a few years ago, when you know, the option could have been, you know, for, you know, others to take on that kind of responsibility, I looked at the role and I looked at everything Councillor Jones was doing then as mayor, and I thought to myself, there's no way I could do anything like that. It's just completely impossible. And to my mind, part of the logic as well of reducing the budget here is making it a slightly more habitable role for a larger number of people with a larger range of life circumstances. So I appreciate a lot of the arguments people have put forward in terms of the role shouldn't be impossible for anyone based on their financial circumstances. I was also looking at it, I'm looking at it from a slightly different angle, if that makes sense, but I do understand everyone's points. Councillor Brand and Madam Mayor.
So I may be, possibly I may be the only person in the town that thinks this, not just this table, but I think personally the role of mayor and the way we use it, I think it's very divisive. I think I think that it perpetuates these sort of weird class divide where it's sort of fancy pants. I don't think it really is that inclusive. So I mean, I certainly don't think that we should be spending this much money on it. I think, yes, I agree, I have not been mayor, and I agree that I don't fully understand the role as well as you guys do, but I do understand that it is a lot of events, and I do understand that it is a massive time commitment, and I do understand that it costs a lot of money. What I would say is that other towns don't spend this much money on this stuff. They don't do that. If you just compare it to Houghton Regis, for instance, they don't spend this much money on mayor and mayoral transport and the civic budget, and they seem to do perfectly fine. I think if we make these changes, the role will change and change accordingly. The person will do the role to the level that they can do it, and not only that, in the future, if you wanted to, you could pop it back up again. If you know that someone is going to be going into that role that is not able to pay for their own transport or not able to make the time commitments, you could increase that funding when you get to that point. So I'm fully in favour of reducing the budget. I think it's wasting a lot of money. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brennan. I've now got Councillor Louise.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 points actually now. One, I'm definitely not fancy pants. I think, you know, I'm really inclusive. I get on the floor with the homeless people, talking to them as mayor, and you know, and I try and bring them closer to the mayor, let them know that they could also be the mayor, no matter who they are, but the brownies, talking to the young people. So yeah, I don't agree. I think the mayoral role is a very powerful tool to use to actually connect with people and bring them closer to the council, to promote pride within the town, etc. I've had some really good feedback. I mean, look, we're all councillors and we get a lot of flack sometimes as well, but the majority of the feedback I've had has been amazing. People are like, wow, you're not like you're not like a mayor and you're just like a normal person. I'm like, I am a normal person. I am just like you, and you could be doing this too. And they really feel much more connected to it, which is brilliant. The other point I was going to make, that currently, obviously, I am the mayor, but we all know that. And I would say that at least 80% of my engagements have been Dunstable based or linked to an organisation within Dunstable. And there have been many. I don't even know how many I've gone to, and it is tiring, but it's also a real privilege. I've loved every moment because of connecting with the people. I've loved it. So when it comes to going out of town, I don't see that as a waste either. It's very important. I see the role as mayor as one part of it is promoting Dunstable. We are quite special. We got the charter in 1864 from Queen Victoria. Our mayor can be called Her Worshipfulness or whatever the terminology is, which is distinctly different from any other town. I sound like I know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't explain it in detail, but I know that we are different. Dunstable is different, and we are held as an example in many ways. So going out of Dunstable to attend some of these other events, mixing with the likes of the High Sheriff, the Lord Lieutenant and other mayors, and actually promoting Dunstable within those other towns as well, creating those relationships and contacts that could be used to Dunstable and here in Dunstable, I think is actually equally as important as attending local events. I've totally forgotten what my other point was. But I would say that it's a very important role, and I only know that now that I'm doing it, and I know that it's very important to a lot of people, especially in Dunstable.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jones.
Just come back. The last 2 years that I was mayor, I probably 90% of the events I went to were Dunstable. You only go out of town when you don't have Dunstable events. If you've got a double header, then you ask your deputy to go if it's an important event out of town. But 9 times out, you send your apologies. The important events, like Louisa said, the High Sheriff, the Lord Lieutenant, the ones where actually all the other mayors from across the county are going to the High Sheriff's Justice Service. They are key events that you get to speak about your town and how much pride you have. Those awards events where you've got your local business community going to, you go and support those businesses by attending there, to be there to support them. It is far more reaching than anybody around you. Until you've done it, it's really hard to understand it. But yeah, now's not the time to be reducing the budget for it. It really isn't.
Councillor Jones, I've got Councillor Tamara.
Yes, Councillor, you want to go?
Would you first?
Thank you. I mean, the only point I wanted to make is I think the issue of class divide, I think it doesn't have a place as it relate to what we do as councillor. Okay, and we need to really debunk that whole issue of this class, that class. There's nothing like that doesn't exist around this room. The point is we are the representation of the people. Okay, and this is not about dismantling anything. This is about representing the town and the people. And that's what we're sitting around here. We've been elected by the people to represent the people. And anything beyond that really is not a conversation that we should be having around this table.
Councillor Hoyt.
Thank you, Chairman. I would have thought that having a sensible budget is to ensure that there is no class divide, and that if you, I'm not sure if Councillor Brendan was suggesting that before a councillor takes on the role of mayor, he should be or she should be interviewed as to whether they can afford it. And if they can't, then we'll have a special budget for them. I think that's totally the wrong way of going about things. The thing is that Dunstable has made a success of the role of mayor. and the town has a standing in Bedfordshire, and it's been indicated as to what that standing is. On Remembrance Day, for example, Central Bedfordshire chairman usually attends. The MP quite often comes along, and that shows the status that we have. We are deemed to do things properly. We're deemed to do things correctly. I know that there's been some comment about standards and so on, but I think that this is something that we need to continue because people recognise the value of it. We are one of the largest town councils in the country. That is why perhaps we have an opportunity to spend a little bit more, because in order to be able to keep that momentum as being one of the larger town councils and what it holds and the responsibilities we have and the civic and the ceremonial roles that we are called upon to take part in.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hollick. Councillor Henderson, and then I think we'll go to food.
Thank you. Just a question of clarification, really. So in the current year, are we forecasting to use the current budget for these particular activities? Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I would suggest that there probably is some room for manoeuvre, in which case, if we're not using all of the resource that's set aside for this purpose. All credit to those who actually do the role, because for most of us, it would be impossible for us to carry out the role with the time of, personal investment in your own time, finding the time to cover all these activities. I think it probably is worth just reviewing whether they could be split more evenly between the deputy and the mayor, and also to think about the way in which we have the most impact using those roles and the types of activity. So that was just point of clarification and just a couple of observations about all credit to those that are doing the role, because it does make it quite exclusive, because most people probably couldn't carry it out to the level it's currently being carried out. So
One's choice, right?
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and Madam Mayor, and then we'll go to a vote.
I just wanted to come back on the spend. So on the car allowance, I would say yes, there definitely will be an underspend this year, because I have used my own car a lot. In saying that, I haven't put all of my expenses through for mileage, etc. So we actually don't know if there's going to be an underspend or not.
And that's usually the case during the year.
And the same for the mayoral allowance. I haven't put in any of my costs yet, actually, and I've got quite a few to put in. So yeah, so we don't know for certain that there will be an underspend. But at the moment, if you're tracking it, I guess it looks like there is. But I've actually not submitted any expenses yet.
Okay. Well, from a commitment control point of view, I think we probably do need to improve that for the following year. So we should have a clear idea on commitments against those budgets, because a forecast should be a forecast for the full year, and that can't happen if the information to do that accounting isn't available. So I would suggest we improve that for the future. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. One is that we put up the mail travel allowance 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, because the costs rose. So this mayor is more unusual in not using it as much. So I wouldn't base the decision just on this year. I think you've got to look at 2 or 3 years. So if this year's mayor is an unusual exception, the normal thing is we'd be spending up to the budget on it. And we will always be keen for members and mayors to submit allowances and claims as quickly as possible, but you will appreciate that that's not under our control, it's just under our request.
Okay, quickly, Madam Mayor.
Just very quickly, can I make the point that the mayoral allowance is something that you can draw in one go at the beginning of your year? I just took the decision not to. So actually, it's not really reflective. My year is not really reflective. Yeah, like you just said, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you all. So the amendment is to whether or not to vote in favour of a reduction of the mayoral transport budget and the mayoral allowance budget by £500 respectively. All in favour? All against?
Against.
Against reducing it. 5, 6,
And-
7.
And any abstentions?
1, 2.
All done. Right, now we need to vote on, mind me, we're voting on 1.1, which is to accept the draft budget proposals and fees and charges for corporate services 2025 to 26, as well as indicative budget proposals in the following 3 years.
I just have one question about
Yes,
the
so there's-
fees and charges that are outlined here. I've recently requested to book the council chamber for a Saturday. Are those Monday to Saturday charges, or are we charging differently on a Saturday? Because you've got to apply, surely you've got somebody to open and close the building if it's an outside organisation that,
Yeah, so at the bottom of that table, it says weekend hires double fee.
okay, so you might want to look at the invoice then that was recently sent to me.
What big question then?
No, I am. I'm being upfront and honest. I'm being upfront and honest. You might want to open, well, if that is the case, but let's just make sure then, please.
Okay. Fun. Do we need proposals and seconders for this, town clerk? Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, right, I am happy to propose this. Do we have any seconders? Councillor Baker? Okay, all in favour? Any against?
Hang on, I don't think I've got.
Sorry. We're on 1.1.
1.1, yeah.
Back at the beginning.
The whole raft of everything after all of those discussions. Yes.
Can someone fill me up water bottle?
I think the members are sleepy town clerk. Me included.
I don't think numbers who have travelled internationally are allowed to be sleepy, aren't they?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Hot
Okay.
water bottles on cold.
So that's what made me laugh. It was the reference to the hot water bottle. So
Yes, I've seen it.
So we'll approve that.
We've approved that. Well done, everyone. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is the overall budget proposal 25 to 26. I assume this will be Lisa.
Yes, so members, this will be very brief, because the action recommended is to approve at 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3, what has previously been taken to the 3 committees. So obviously 1.1.3 is what you have just decided. The other 2 obviously at previous committees. So what we are asking you to recommend is to propose the budget presented to full council for approval in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
No, you haven't.
It was mentioned before about having a somewhat of a list of the events and the attendances for those and cost per person. Did that happen in community services? Did I miss it?
No, that hasn't yet been provided to members.
That's fine. End of question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cameron. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Or
Well, just to make sure, thank you, Chair. Just to make sure I am clear, so we are agreeing basically on the preset overall budget
Agreeing to recommend to full
to
council.
recommend to full council, which would be 11.86%, 89%.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just say, I think the best way to think about it is, I think officers have done incredible work. And I want to thank the chief executive and the overall, staff and the head of service just for the work that they've done. I think, we've really grilled a lot to kind of try to get this done as much as we can. and probably one of the people that's giving you so much hassle on this, coming back in front and trying to get this done as much as you can. I do feel like, you know, it's difficult for me to sort of vote against this, because I do believe that you've done a lot of work, even though I, you know, have the feeling that this precept is too high. But I can see that you've done a lot of work, you know, in various ways. So the only thing I can say at this point is, you know, from 16% to what we have now, it could be better, but this is the best, I suppose, we are, considering everything else that's happened from the national insurance that was dumped on everybody, which I totally understand. It has nothing to do with us. It's what the government has decided to do. That has an impact of obviously bringing the precept in terms of the overall reserve to what it should be, does have an impact as well. So I accept that it is what it is at this point. So let me just say thank you again for the work that you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Tamara. And just to build, myself and my vice chair, Councillor Kotarski, have spent lots and lots of time and had lots and lots of meetings with Paul and Lisa over the last few months to try and basically work out ways to bring down the precept without without reducing the quality of services for residents. And we've tried lots of things. We've gone down lots of rabbit holes, unfortunately, many of which did not turn out to be as useful as we would have hoped. But yes, a tremendous amount of work has gone into this, and massive props to officers, because it really has been incredible. And they've been very patient. Okay, all right. Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that actually everybody's really worked hard on this, and I mean, especially the officers, Lisa, you know, all of you really worked hard on it. But I want to also recognise all of the councillors that have given up extra time to go through this, because actually we've all tried our very, very best to reduce the precept where possible. To go from 16% down to 11%, you know, that's quite a drop. So it was all worth it, I guess. So thanks everybody that's been involved in reducing that.
You, Councillor Atwell.
Yeah, I just really wanted to quickly echo that, you know, it's done a fantastic job where we thought we couldn't find any more. We've found that little bit extra, and I think that's what the residents are expecting us to do. Everyone knows we're not expected to work miracles. We haven't got a magic wand. You know, life is the way it is. We're in a cost of living crisis, and heating bills, everything's going up, and that doesn't preclude the, you know, the council. I would just say that, you know, my thanks go to everyone that's involved in that, and the officers. In particular, I'd like to say to being chairman of grounds to John Crawley, because I think that was an exceptional amount that we've reduced, £78,454 from the GES budget. I think is a fantastic, and again, a lot of that was down to the working group that I know a lot of the councillors gave at the time to be there. So that, you know, given that was an hour or two out of a time there, we really did make a massive amount of savings from that. So it's, well, really probably the most productive 2 hours ever spent for council's perspective of saving money. But it does go to show what can be achieved, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody involved in that.
Well, I've got Councillor Jones and Councillor Brannan.
Just from my perspective, I think, you know, everyone has done an awful amount of work this year, and you know, everyone around the table, not just officers but the councillors. I think, you know, this is probably one of the years where we as councillors have had quite lengthy debates for the first time in a number of years around budget setting, which actually has been really interesting to sit and listen to people's views and opinions. We've not fallen out over it. We all understand the difficulties that we as a council face. But I think what we should be proud of is that our residents will still continue to receive some fantastic services from Dunstable Town Council over the next 12 months. You know, that events package that came out this week, that shows you what Dunstable is all about, making sure our residents have the extras in life when they can't actually afford things potentially themselves. We will try to make that difference for them. So thank you, everybody.
Councillor Jones, Councillor Brown.
Hi. So we're about to lose 2 members of staff. Is there any chance that we can hold off appointments to those posts and possibly save some money from the budget? There's a possibility there of some savings.
So the current year forecast does include a slight saving because they won't be refilled immediately. However, in both the cases, and we've discussed as a senior management team, particularly with the compliance manager, actually, that post has become was long needed and is invaluable to the organisation. We've really struggled at it. And the same for the grounds post. Actually, you can't have a team of 14 people without a line manager looking after that work and the rangers as well. I think it just wouldn't be fair on those staff not to provide them with management resource.
Thanks.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Going to say exactly that. But just to reiterate, James, obviously we know that you're leaving us, and the role that you have carried out as compliance. Oh gosh, what's the proper title? Compliance manager. There's the savings that you have helped to make within that role. Oh gosh, like we've made massive savings on loads of different contracts, running tendering processes, which are not easy. I think to not maintain momentum of that role when it's actually given us so much value as a council and reduced the costs. I think absolutely we should ensure that the momentum's continued in that particular role. It's really important. And thank you so much, James, for all that you did. Your role, we're going to miss you so much.
Okay. Right, slightly stole my thunder because I was going to say something like that in a bit, but that's so. Yeah, James, I hear this is your last committee meeting, so I will officially thank you on behalf of the room, and everyone else can say thank you. I'm not going to stop you, but you've been brilliant. I've enjoyed working with you, and everyone can only say great things about you. So yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I was just going to say as well, I think we deserve to extend that to Demi, who's also, although I mentioned it in the grounds team, a lot of people around here probably won't be aware of it as well. So I think we deserve it.
Okay, right. Did anyone else have any other comments or points on the budget proposal?
I've just got one thing. Can we put something in to talk of the town breaking down why we're about to increase it so much this year? Communication again.
But we do put in a standard item every time with some kind of infographic around it and how it's broken down. So we'll find a way of putting that in. But it's sort of really tricky thing to put in with not much space on one page to actually make it meaningful. But
I think like the key points that you bring to the committee with things like national insurance, big things like we kept money back last year, which had to be repaid. So people quickly see that we were up against it.
Great, thank you, Councillor Kwiatkowski. Does anyone else have any points or questions or general statements? Then we're voting. Yes. Okay. So let's vote on 1.1, which 1.2, 1.11, 1.11, 1.112, and 1.113 together. I assume members are happy with that.
Yes.
So all in favour with proposing these budget changes to full council as laid out. Wait, no, proposers and seconders are important. They sure are. Councillor Tamara is happy to propose and Councillor Kwiatkowski is happy to second. Okay, all in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Okie dokie, that's unanimous. Oh, okie dokie. And I don't think. Yes, Councillor, not Councillor. 1.2. Okay, let's also vote on 1.2, that the proposed budget for 2025 to 26, including the changes above, be presented to the council for approval. I'm happy to propose.
I'll second.
Councillor Bates, second. All in favour? Okay. Right. Anything else that I'm missing?
That's not a recommendation, that's just to continue.
Brilliant. Okay, no, I'm not going to say okey dokey. Okay, on to the compliance and facilities report. That is James.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. And as it is my last one, I've only just thought of this. I would like to thank all present councillors for your support and all past councillors that worked with for 14 years.
Wow.
So thank you to everyone. Yeah. It's been very enjoyable, and it is sad to go, but
Don't go this.
yeah. So I'll move on to my report, which I will make, which is a brief report, and I will go through briefly as possible because I'm conscious of the time. Computers goes. Grove House, our appointed surveyors, Fraser Freeth, are currently putting a specification together to go out to tender for the rear parapet works that's required. We'll be hoping to go out to tender very shortly and bring a report to this committee in March for recommendations. And they've also commissioned work for the front elevations for the water issue we have. So work should be taking place in February. And once that's completed, we can start to do some interior works to the downstairs toilets. We've already mentioned about Morton's taking the ground floor meeting room. Very quickly on procurement, we're out to tender for waste management for the council. Deadline's the 31st of March, and we'll be again bring a recommendation report to the next committee. And on environmental and biodiversity, last Monday, the environmental working group had a presentation on our recent baseline assessment from the consultant. What it brought to light was, due to some of the constraints imposed on the council, such as listed buildings, budgetary constraints, the current council corporate plan objective of being a carbon neutral organisation by 2030 might be unrealistic in its current form. What the consultant's going to do is put a set of objectives and actions together, with some time periods on them of what can be achieved, which then each committee will bring an update report on those relevant to the relevant committee. But what I would take away is if councils want the opportunity for a report to the next committee on the report of the assessment, and an opportunity to discuss the corporate plan objective if they want to review that objective, and then we can take that back. I personally won't be writing the report now, but I will pass it on to someone else. So just need to know whether councillors want that opportunity to review the corporate plan objective.
Okay, thank you very much, James. We've got a question from Councillor Jones.
I'm pleased to see that front elevation work is going to commence and those repairs done. My bigger question though is, when's the outside of the exterior of the building going to be redecorated in its entirety? It is looking extremely sorry for itself, and a number of residents are questioning whether we would allow other businesses in the town to let their properties go like we've let our property go.
Of the rear front. We need to, once we've fully established the front and getting that issue with the water fixed, then that's something we'll consider with our budgets. The priority is, come from Fraser Freeth, is the rear elevation, the rear parapet is a priority to get that done, because it could cause further damage. But then I think we've also spoken about using reserves to do that front elevation. But yes.
When we had the budget approved for the reserve expenditure, I did include that. We just want to get the damp issue sorted.
Yeah, no, fully understand that.
Yeah.
But just conscious that it's
Yeah,
now been picked up by residents about how poor it's looking from the outside. If we're thinking about having it as a marriage venue, you need it to be pristine 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Sorry, just to say on that, we might have to do a repaint on it, which won't last very long, and then go back 2 or 3 years later and do a much more expensive version. So that's the decision.
Yeah.
on this.
Cool. Okie dokie. If there are no other questions and points, I think we'll move on to the next item, which is also James.
So it's just very quick report on the corporate risk log. There's some background information there, and last January we brought the corporate risk management policy to committee, which was approved. This report's just saying that that risk log has been reviewed, which is an appendix 1, and it's been reviewed by our officer management team and senior management team. So there's been some amendments and updates, and I will just make light of make a point of referencing in the appendix 1 administration. The very last section doesn't have a risk assessment associated to it, but it would be exactly the same as the one above it, which would be a 5. So just to make that point. Any questions?
I have a comment that the loss of skill or expertise due to staff leaving is in green as a non-risk. I would say that that's possibly wrong because you're leaving. Is that red herring? It's green. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, I know.
No, okay. Any other questions, points for James? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, thank you very much, James.
Once again, thank you, councillors. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Okie dokie. Oh, yes, town clerk.
Just to note, apologies that the risk report, the purpose of the report is to review and approve the risk management.
Oh, yes.
The members do need to approve the risk management arrangements for the sake of our annual return.
Okay, all in, no, any proposals? No. Councillor Waiter, any seconders? Councillor Jones, all in favour? That unanimous. Okay. Right, we can all be relieved. Okay, on to the marketing and communications update from Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. As you'll see on the report, social media is growing in follower numbers. There's over 13,000 followers on the Dunsford Town Council Facebook. TikTok and Instagram has seen a significant growth in followers. There's been very good engagement on social media with the videos from Twilight, as you can see in the report. Good interactions, good amount of reach. A lot of people engaging with those. Coming onto the website, thank you to the members who form part of the working group and was a part of that. The new website is still in the design phase currently. There's no set launch date at present. However, the aim is roughly April, but obviously we won't launch until everything is functioning properly and everything's been tested. So we don't want to put like a proper launch date to make sure everything's okay and working correctly. And obviously further updates will be brought to the next committee. The what's on screen, we are seeing the community submitting content to be put on the screen, and the next cycle of committees will be put onto the screen to increase more public attendance to the meetings. Talk of the town, the what's on guide is obviously now in Dunstable residents' doors. Takes tours advertised in this edition, and Freestar coaches have inquired about advertising. So hopeful we'll get some more advertising, and we'll obviously continue to seek advertisers as well. The next distribution date is for the 16-page edition, and that's from April the 4th. I noted in the previous conversation that there was a few that didn't get Talk of the Town delivered through their streets. If you could let me know, and I can track them through the distribution company, because sometimes I feel like they don't know where they've left off and if someone else differently is picked up. So if you could let me know what address streets and stuff like that, and then I can get that sorted with the distribution company. That's it from me. Thank you.
Any questions or points on that item? Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Chair.
It's late.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that report, Rachel. And yeah, it's great to see all the social media pages and posts that are performing really well. I just wanted to comment on the Talk of the Town actually, because I mentioned earlier that I hadn't received it many years through my door, but it just wasn't known that new estates weren't receiving it. As soon as I raised it with you, actually, you organised for it to be delivered. And the one time recently it was missed, I literally received it within an hour of telling you about it. So thank you so much for that. I know you're really hot on chasing it up and make sure that everybody that should receive it does receive it. And I'm really grateful to you for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Mayor, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to reports from outside organisations. I ask that members keep their updates very brief. Once it hits 9:30, we have to vote to continue the meeting. So we'll start with Citizens Advice, Councillor Atwell.
Yeah, okay, well, with that in mind, just very briefly, the Citizens Advice is continuing to be successful. It provides an awful lot, as you will know, to our residents already. Just one point of real note is that it's going through quite a sensitive restructure, I'd kind of call it at the moment, which is very sort of sensitive to its situation. So I can't really sort of say anything more about that. But yeah, it's business as usual. It's helping out an awful lot of people. It's saving CBC over £1 million a year. It's serving a great deal of service to our residents. So that's, I think, all I've got to say briefly.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. The Town Training Association, Councillor Hollick.
Well, maybe I have to defer to the Deputy Mayor, I don't know, but it is the Town Training Association. Yes, the Deputy Mayor, myself, a former Mayor, a former Deputy Mayor and the Chairman of Training Association. We just come back literally today from 4 days over at Ports. We learned quite a lot about the relationship between Ports and Cologne, in that Ports was sort of drawn into Cologne's embrace some years ago now. It's a 50th and 50th anniversary of the incorporation, and in the presentation that we attended, a sort of formal presentation on the Saturday, it was very clear that members of Ports were still concerned about their incorporation into Cologne, having been an independent city in the past. But anyway, suffice to say that we were entertained very royally over the 4 days, and 1 or 2 visits we made. We did extend the invitation from the Town Council to the Mayor of Ports, and I believe the Mayor of Cologne as well, for our potential meeting in May. I think it will also be a time when there can be a return visit from the Partnerschaftverein, which is the equivalent of the Twinning Committee, also to send some representatives. The only problem we have as DETA is there are no funds, so we'll have to have a conversation about how we entertain the guests that we have from Ports.
Great, thank you, Councillor Hollick. On to the Hospice at Home Management Committee, Councillor Bater.
Attended the meeting last week. Everything is going very well. They had a successful year. It is their 40th anniversary this year.
Next year.
No, next year. And there will be lots planned. There's lots of events this year. Look on their website. Come and join us.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bater. On Ashton Arms House, I'm not aware of any I don't think we've had any meetings since the previous finance meeting. There's an update there. Ashton Schools, I'm also on that, as is Councillor Hollick. We recently visited Manshead School. We've taken our tour. It's very good. Lots of money's been spent on good things, and that is very positive. Councillor Hollick, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I was just add that members will remember that the monies that went to Manshead were from the sale of Ashton Middle School, and suffice to say that over the last 2 years, substantial work has been undertaken, and it has really transformed the school. And I think the pupils or students, or whatever you call them nowadays, are very appreciative, as indeed are the staff. And they have made their chapel the Ashton Chapel or something, actually recognising the fact that they have had monies from the Ashton Schools Foundation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hollick. Choose Foundation, Councillor Brennan.
Hi there. So I went to a meeting of the Choose Foundation. A couple of the main points is that Choose Foundation offers financial grants.
Sorry, Councillor Brennan. Do we need to hold that vote right now to continue the meeting?
I'd allow the current conversation.
Okay, sorry, go on, go Councillor.
So they offer financial grants for families who cannot afford a school uniform or school equipment. And one of the things they have are flyers advertising that, and I was going to ask if it's possible that the council might be able to put them up on our notice boards within the town, or that should really be a motion, which I realise now. So that was one thing that I was going to ask. Another thing is visit the Little Theatre, because they're really good. And they report to the Choose Foundation. I've lost my and another thing is something that I've been working with Councillor Hollick on, which is actually a substantial thing, but there are loads of books, history books about Dunstable being donated, and they're going to keep them at Choose House, or they're looking to keep them at Choose House. But we think it would be, although I'm not going to speak for Councillor Hollick, but I think it would be a very good thing that we in the future look to keep those books in Priory House. Look at the possibility of creating a Dunstable library, which is, I know we have a library in Dunstable, but this would be a library about Dunstable. Where people could visit and learn specifically about Dunstable, and you can have children visit, you could have school visits where they could read and learn about the history of Dunstable, and it would be a safe place for the books, but it's something to think about in the future.
I'd perhaps just add to that, it's also the extensive papers of Vivian Evans and other local historians that we could have our hands on, and yes, we wouldn't want to lose them. And there are members who have Dunstable books, and when we depart this mortal coil, it would be sensible to leave those books to a Dunstable based historical archive. So I think it's something we would like to look towards doing.
It's a great update. Looks exciting stuff next. Should we hold the vote now, Town Clerk? I don't know how this works. The vote to extend the meeting? Do we need to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. I propose that we extend the meeting to finish out this update. Yeah, cool. Excellent stuff. Right, Paul's When charity, Councillor Jones.
So we're just about to meet in February to discuss the annual amount of money that we will hand out to residents on Maundy Thursday this year. And we only meet once a year ahead of the Maundy Thursday giving.
Jones. Lockingham charity and Marsh charity, that's Councillor Jones again.
We have another meeting in March where we'll be doing our inspections of the properties in Church Street as well. And we've also been receiving applications for grant applications for white goods, etc., that we're working with to identify supporting some individual families that are in need.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. The Dunstable and District Scout Council Executive, Councillor Kutarsky.
I attended the Christmas party with my wife at the Old London's Lodge. I believe Madam Mayor attended the Scouts Christmas do.
Okay, thank you very much. I call this meeting to a close. The next meeting will be on Monday, the 17th of March at 7 p.m.
You're